Hey everyone, welcome to my ABC draft analysis. The draft ended, I'd say about 3 or 4 days ago, I'm not sure. But I made this draft analysis presentation. I hope it's sort of aesthetically pleasing. I also wanted to be a little bit different with this draft analysis because I not only wanted to describe the 11 Pokemon I chose and why I chose them, but I wanted to go through my entire draft process and like what my goals were, what my ambitions were, and what my strategy was going into a draft. Going into a draft that has the qualities of an ABC draft. So I will just get right into it. The draft process for the ABC was that it was a slow draft, which means I had a lot of time to adapt my original plan. If something was sniped for me, I had a lot of time to replan and find new mons that fit with my team and different mons that support it. It was a point-based system, which means every Pokemon had an assigned value. It also means that the picks were non-ordered, so I could pick whatever I liked whenever I wanted to, as long as it was still available. And then I had to draft 11 Pokemon with a combined value of 120 points, which is a average Pokemon value of a little under 11 points. And then there was one Mega requirement for every single draft. So I personally prepped for the draft in a few ways. First is that I prepped ambitiously because you never know what other people will prep like. Sometimes people, there will always be like a lot of good Pokemon that just fall under the radar because no one put it on their draft plan because no one thought they would get it. But since everyone thought they wouldn't get it, it just fell under the radar. So I planned ambitiously. I got what I thought, synergized well together. I didn't pay too much attention to when stuff would go. It's also really hard to predict in a points-based draft when stuff goes. So I just planned ambitiously. I didn't want to make any predictions with other people and stuff like that. I also made a personal list of underpriced per tier Pokemon. So if I saw a Pokemon that was 12 points, which I did see a few Pokemon that were 12 points that I thought should have been like 14 or 15 points, I noted them. And the end goal of that is if I can get a bunch of value points, I get a lot of Pokemon that I personally believe have a combined value of something over 120 points. That just makes my draft just more powerful than other drafts. So that was sort of the goal. And that was the list that I worked off of. I didn't necessarily work off the entire tier list. I just worked off the list that I thought were value points, and I would refer to the tier list if I couldn't find anything in my value points. And then I created an adaptable and moldable plan to work off of. I tried to create mons that were able to have backups, and I didn't want, if I got sniped, I didn't want to have to, pick 10 mons all over again that go with whatever I just picked. So I had a few personal goals for the draft. First was obviously to draft a good team, and the second one was to use a few unfamiliar Gen 7 Pokemon, just because I have never really... I've done draft leagues in the Sun and Moon meta, but not the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon meta. And even in the Sun Moon meta, I didn't really use that many Generation 7 Pokemon. I'm just not that entirely familiar with the generation, so I wanted to get some experience with a few of those mons. And then I also wanted to have a large majority of all 17 types. It probably doesn't mean all 17, even though that would be ideal. That was the goal. That was what I aimed for. Just something like 14 or 15 or 16 would be really ideal. It just gives me coverage all across the board. And then I wanted versatile speed tiers because that's always a good thing to have in draft leagues. So this was the original team that I originally had planned on your screen. You can see a lot of ambitious picks here, such as Tapu Koko and Garchomp and Mega Scizor, balanced out with a lot of mons that were really low point, like 3-point Avalugg and 5-point Kecleon. And those were two mons that I thought should have been in like the 7 or 8 range that were really low. So I got those on my plan. If this was the plan I got, that would have been super amazing. I would be so ecstatic. It would be amazing. I'd be jumping off the walls. I'd be so happy. But I only got 5 of those Pokemon. You're going to see throughout this video what Pokemon I ended up getting and what that team turned out into and what 5 Pokemon on that original plan I ended up getting in total. So my ideal round 1 was Tapu Koko. And it was one of those mons that not only did I want because it's a good Pokemon, but I also wanted it because it was a Gen 7 mon that I really wanted to try out. And it gave me speed right away, it gave me hazard clearing right away, it gave me a Volt Switcher, a Pivoter right away, and it just gave me so much. It gave me terrain, which is so nice, and I can, do some shenanigans with that later on in my draft. it gave me a lot of different options. I also like Pokemon that are physical and special. I'm not going to go into it too much more because I didn't end up getting it. I ended up getting it sniped, which means I just went for my Garchomp pick, which is a mon I'm super familiar with. Yeah, it's a mon I'm super familiar with, at least recently. I used it in the past CBL League that I uploaded to this channel, but it was also just something that it's a good mon. I was comfortable using it, and I've used it before. So it was originally my round 2, and it paired well with Mega Scizor, which at this point was going to be my ideal round 2 post Tapu Koko Snipe. It also gave me immediate speed. I always want something over base 100. It gave me immediate hazards in the form of Stealth Rocks. It also gave me an electric immunity, and that's one of the 2 immunities that I think is absolutely necessary to have on your draft. And then it also gave me an immediate dragon type, which is, something important to have. So that was Garchomp. I liked it a lot. Has a bunch of cool options. It can be run defensively, offensively. Have hazards. It can be run physically or specially if you need to be if you need to have some special coverage. It has a usable attack stat to do so. It just has so many options from setup to just being bulky and setting up hazards or just being a Scarfer, which is also nice. It filled a lot of checkboxes on my draft. So unfortunately, since Tapu Koko was sniped, I had to replan. Obviously, this was the draft pre-Tapu Koko. After replanning, it changed just a little bit to these mons because I went for since I needed to go for a different electric type, which I ended up deciding should have been Magnezone. It also allowed me to replace a few other mons because Magnezone is obviously a lot more points than Tapu Koko, so it allowed me to get higher quality mons in replacement of some of my lower quality mons. So that's what I did. This was the plan. Obviously, did not get it in the end. My next pick was Mega Scizor. It was super great. It paired amazingly with Mega Garchomp. It was so perfect. I was so dead set on doing it. In round 1, I was like so sure. I was like, all right, do I go Garchomp or do I go Scizor? I think I want to go Garchomp more because I'm just like more familiar with it and I like it more. So I went Garchomp and I was like, please don't get Mega Scizor. And then 2 picks later, Mega Scizor was taken. So really tragic, but that's okay because we ended up getting Mega Diancie, which in hindsight I argue is even better with Mega Garchomp. It cores absolutely beautifully with it, and they're just both super powerful Pokemon. And it was also super easy to get because I already had a regular Diancie on the plan, so it didn't make replanning too difficult, so it just seems like a really nice option. Gave me another high-speed Pokemon, and it also gave me an immediate Fairy type, which is something that a lot of people struggle to get in the late rounds. It gives me dual setup options in the form of Rock Polish and in the form of Calm Mind. It's very bulky, and you can play shenanigans with its pre-Mega form as well, which is always nice to have, and it filled my Mega requirement as well. I didn't want to wait on picking up a Mega because a Mega Diancie was sniped. Then I'd have to replan everything all together, and it was just tragic. It also gives me more hazard options. I don't know if I'll run Stealth Rock Mega Diancie, but maybe I'll need to. I don't know. It also just has cool niche moves like Heal Bell and Endeavor. It just hits super hard and has niche moves to back up being good. So I really like it. Magic Bounce is also super nice because it's helping me out with the hazard game. It's just I really think that I'm on the hazard setting side of things, the team's turning out really great. On the hazard clearing side of things, the Magic Bounce will help out a lot more. So since Mega Scizor was taken, time for replanning again. So I sort of had to, replace Diancie, and I also just realized to myself that I'm not going to be able to plan 12 mons at once without seeing what I get in the next few rounds. So I left a few, I changed a few things. I changed Magnezone to Magneton. I changed Gengar for Venomoth just based on pure value. Then I left about 25 points open for, 25, 26 points open for just things that I saw later down on the line that I thought could benefit the 8 mons or the 9 mons that I'm planning currently at this point in the draft. So ideally in round 3, I wanted Greninja. Greninja was the first mon I saw when I got the tier list, that it was 12 points, and I was like, this is worth a lot more than 12 points. It's fast, it's a hazard setter, it has tech options like Taunt, it has a bunch of cool coverage moves, it can be run physically or specially. Did I say it's a pivoter? I mean, it's an offensive water type, it's great. It's an amazing Pokemon. And even though it's Torrent only, I still think it has amazing value at 12 points. So I wanted it round 3, and I actually got it round 3. So it's the first mod I got that I actually had on my original plan at the round that I wanted it at. So I thought it was very high value at 12 points. It also gives me a Psychic immunity, even though it's kind of frail. it just is something that helps bulky psychics not be able to like Calm Mind stored power against me, if that's like a concern. And then pivoting makes up for my snipes. Obviously, Mega Scizor and Tapu Koko were great pivoters, but I didn't get either of them, so I needed more pivoting on this team. It gave me high speed control at 122. It's absolutely phenomenal. It gives me priority in Water Shuriken. It gives me more hazards, so all three Pokemon are able to have, you know, in total, the three Pokemon I've drafted have Stealth Rocks, Spikes, and Toxic Spikes, which is great. And it also has mixed attack potential, like I mentioned earlier. So super, super cool Pokemon. I'm super glad I got Greninja. It was the first mon I wanted. It's the mon I wanted the most on this draft, and I'm so, so happy I got it. So time to replan. And you might be asking, well, why are we replanning when we have, when we have gotten the pick that we wanted? And that's true. But I did some more researching, and I did a bit more work to see what cored well with the Mega Diancie and Garchomp picks that I had so far, and what were 12 Greninja. And I decided what filled those two question marks there, and that was both Decidueye and Araquanid. Now, on my plan, I felt like I needed a really solid hazard clear, so I looked at Decidueye, and I also thought Sticky Webs went well with all the mons that I picked so far. So I looked at Araquanid, and I also obviously wanted Gen 7 mons, so I looked at Gen 7 mons, and those are some Gen 7 mons. So the next mon I picked was Bronzong. I'll just say from here that we did get a lot of what we wanted. There will be some other replanning segments a bit later, but for the next 4 or 5 rounds, we actually got what we wanted. So I'm going to go down the list of these Pokemon and just sort of describe why I wanted them and why they were good. So Bronzong I picked because it was a replacement for Uxie, but it also has the Steel type, which makes up for the Scizor Snipe in terms of the typing department. It also has really surprising offensive potential. I'm a player who likes to have bulky Pokemon, but I don't want those bulky Pokemon to be passive. And I feel like a lot of people think Bronzong is passive, but it has like 89 attack, and it has like ability to be trick room offensive and stuff like that. So it obviously cannot be slept on. It can be a sweeper, a Calm Mind sweeper if it needs to be. It's also a ground immunity, and having a Steel type with a ground immunity is just absolutely beautiful. It gives me another hazard option, so all 4 mons have hazard options. It's my devoted bulky psychic so far, and I thought for 10 points it was absurd, absurd value. Once again, a mon that can be run physically or specially, which is absolutely beautiful. That's just something I personally really like. So I actually don't think I think I've used Bronzong like once before in Draft League, but it was like so long ago I barely remember it. So I'm super excited for Bronzong. I think it like finds matchup in so many different matchups. So that's Bronzong. The next mon I wanted was Decidueye. Now Decidueye, I think I mentioned this in my Decidueye UU showcase video, but it's the mon that I think a lot of people were questioning a round 5 pick on. I thought it was really important just for my team personally. Even if it didn't have value up in round 5, I needed hazard clearing other than a Magic Bounce Diancie, and I needed I wanted more priority, in which this has both Sucker Punch and Shadow Sneak, which is super nice, more setup, and then mixed attacking potential is something that's so underrated. Not only the ability to have a bunch of coverage, which Decidueye does, it also has pivoting in the form of U-turn, but it also can be run either physically or specially, and it can be run either physically bulky or specially bulky. So it has a whole bunch of options. It has tag options like Tailwind. It can set up. It can, it can do weird things like Curse if I want it to. It's really cool. It has pivoting options in U-turn. It's a defogger. It's also a spin blocker, which is super nice since I have 4 mons prior that set up hazards. If obviously it's like if I'm getting rapid spin done, then it's nice to have Decidueye to spin block for me. It's also the first team member I have that has reliable recovery, which is great in the form of Roost. And then, obviously, I need to learn some Gen 7 Pokemon, so that was the other form of motivation. I was also looking at Delmies, but I just wanted some more speed. I felt that, like, with Bronzong, I didn't want to have too many, like, ultra-slow mons. And I also just thought Decidueye looked better. It could, like, pivot and recover, and it could recover more reliably, and had better options. Spirit Shackle is really niche because it traps your opponent. I just thought it was cool. So I went Decidueye over Delmies. And then the next mon I got was Araquanid. Now, I do not think there was any world in the starting of this planning draft that I would even like think about drafting Araquanid, but someone brought it up in a Discord chat that Araquanid is really nice because it's like super specially bulky, which I would have never known. And then it has this really cool ability called Water Bubble, which means it can't get burned, and all its water type attacks have like double base power. So Liquidation is a 170 base power move. So it just feels like it's going for like a water version of V Create every turn, which is amazing. And it also has a 20% chance to drop defense. So it's an amazing attack, and it also has cool offensive options like Lunge, which lowers attacks, and it has Leech Life, which recovers. It has Poison Jab, finding you hit fairies. And it also has a bunch of cool, weird niche things like Soak and then it has Sticky Web, obviously. I think it has Whirlpool, so I can trap opponents. It has a bunch of cool things, and then it cores nicely with Bronzong and covers weaknesses in a really nice way because of Water Bubble. It resists fire, which Bronzong doesn't like, and then its flying weakness is covered by Bronzong. It's obviously not a perfect core, but it cores pretty nicely defensively with Bronzong, and I will be able to sort of play around that in regards to a few certain mods that I encounter. And then, like I said, insane offensive potential. I already mentioned the notable tech, but it also, because it has sticky webs, which is obviously the main reason I drafted it, because Diancie under sticky webs or Garchomp under sticky webs is absolutely insane. It also gives me hazard every single entry hazard, which is something I think I'm the only person in the league who can claim that. I'm not sure if that's entirely accurate, but I think I am. I was looking for it and I didn't find anyone else who had every single hazard stack, every single form of hazard stacking. So Stealth Rocks, both forms of spikes and toxic spikes, and then Sticky Web. And this is only by round 6 I have all these things. So super nice. I don't really have to worry about hazard setting anymore. So that's just the fun of it. The next mon I got is Moltres. Like I said, insane, or like I was saying earlier, how I really want insane value. Moltres was another mon that just jumped to me as a mon that is only 7 points. I thought that was absolutely insane. What is also nice is a lot of drafts, when they draft plan, develop a really insane ground weakness, and that's because they'll draft a fire type and that adds to the ground weakness, but Moltres does not have that problem. It actually gives me a ground immunity. So it's super nice to have with something like Diancie. So having a bunch of ground immunities is super nice, and then it's also super strong under webs. Like, people sleep on I think it's 125 special attack, which is great. It gives me a fire type right away. It also fills a really necessary speed gap that was a 70 on Decidueye and a 102 on Garchomp. I think Moltres is at 90, which is a really, really nice speed to have, because not a lot of Pokemon have that. And then it's also a good potential low-tier Z move abuser. So I'll get into that a little bit later, but I saw things like Z Hurricane and Z Solar Beam and thought this might be a really, really good option. So, all right. Hitmonlee. I was on the fence about Hitmonlee or Hitmontop. I ultimately decided Hitmonlee. It is a little bit less reliable as a hazard clear, but it hits so freaking hard. And I think the thing that sold me was just having sticky webs. So it can hazard clear, but under sticky webs, Reckless High Jump Kick just destroys things. And has many forms of priority, which I'm looking for. I think it has Bullet Punch, Mach Punch, Sucker Punch, Fake Out, I don't know, Feint, I don't know. But super, super cool forms of priority, and it has 2 very different abilities. So it's not like a one-dimensional Pokemon that people have to prep for. People have to prep for a Banded Reckless set under webs. People have to prep for a normal gem on Burden boosted set. If I'm facing a person with terrain, they have to watch out for Unburden with a seed. So what that does is it also allows it to function as a sweeper or a wall breaker. So it fills 2 cool roles in the sense that it can either come in and get an Unburden boosted at the end of a game and sweep, or it can come in at the start of the game and just start bopping shit. And then it also gives the draft niche speed, so it doesn't give the draft 87 is interesting because it's right under Moltres, so it doesn't help a lot with speed tiers. It helps a little bit with anything that's below 87, but also and anything that's between 87 and 89 and 90. I don't know, I said 89. But it also gives the draft niche speed, and what that means is Unburden, boosted, Hitmonlee people at the if I'm facing a super, super fast mon, they might have to pay attention to unburden Hitmonlee, or something like a Sand Rush team, or something along those lines. Or a Rock Polish team, you never know. Alright, so we got everything that we wanted, so far at least. So you might be asking, why are we replanning now? Well, truth is I just looked at the other 3 mons I had left. This was round 8 that we just got Hitmonlee. So we had round 9, 10, and 11. 3 more Pokemon left to go. And on my roster right now, we have Cinccino, Venomoth, and Magneton. And the thing is I was looking between Magneton and Magnezone, and I was thinking to myself, God damn it, I don't know which one to pick, because they're only 2 points apart. Magnezone is 2 points higher than Magneton, and there was a question about speed, and it was like, is Magneton just better than Magnezone because of its speed? But if Magneton is better, then why is it lower points? Magnezone is bulkier, but Magneton can hold a Violite. There's just a whole lot of questions. It was a big struggle, and I feel like a lot of people I was talking to during the draft process can attest to like the annoyance of the debating between these two things, and it was really, really annoying. So I was that was my big concern, my huge concern with the rest of my plan, and I realized to myself, I just don't like either of these mons. Like, they just didn't have a lot of coverage. And then Venomoth was like very situational, and Cinccino just didn't hit as hard as I would have liked it to. So I rethought those 3 mons. I picked up stuff like Hitmonlee and Moltres, thinking that I was going to get those mons later on. And I sort of just had to adapt because I just didn't like them, and that's really important. I wanted a draft that I was going to enjoy to use the rest of the season. So I had to do some rethinking, and this is ultimately what I came up with. I found a different electric type. I threw on a Porygon Z, and I got another ground type to scare away the electric types. So round 9, we got Piloswine. I wanted priority ice. I was scared of things like Landorus Therian and Dragonite and stuff along those lines. I just wanted also electric types to have a really rough time versus my draft, because electric types can just, at this point in the draft, slap on HPS and win. But having electric types be forced to run something like Grass Knot, or even HP Water, or something like that, is super nice. The other thing that's great about this is it's an ice type that doesn't fear fire. So if I'm building, and I'm worried about a fire type, Piloswine is not something that, is brought at the expense of another fire weakness. It gives me more hazard setting options. I don't know if I need them, but I put it there. And at 6 points, I thought it was high value. Within a Violite, this thing just hits really, really hard. Sets up Stealth Rocks. It can curse if I wanted to, so it does have some setup ability. But I mostly just wanted it for that stab priority Ice Shard and that ability to make electric types just fear my draft a little bit more. The next mon I picked was Electivire, and seeing this thing at 7 points, I was surprised that I had not seen it earlier. Electivire just seems so, so good for my draft. It gives me a 95 speed tier, which fills a gap between Garchomp and Moltres, albeit a really small gap because it's only by 12, but there's a lot of mons that are like in that range, so it's nice to have something a bit there. And I realized like the only reason I wanted Magneton and Magnezone was just to like make electric types have to run HP Ground instead of HP Ice for Garchomp, but Electivire does that better because it is literally immune to electric, and then isn't even 4 times weak to HP Ground. So if they do bring HP Ground, Electivire doesn't give a shit. And then I can run Assault Vest, and that it just gives me a whole thing. It's also a 3rd electric community, so electric types are just really bad versus my team, which is great. Gives me another pivoting option, which is something I didn't have. I realized that with Magnezone and Magneton, it was going to be slow pivoting unless I ran Scarf every week, which was another reason I also did not go with Magneton and Magnezone, because I felt like I was going to be forced to run Scarf every single week. So it gives me pivoting options, and it also has better coverage than Magneton and Magnezone in like Psychic and Flamethrower and, I don't know, Hammer Arm, Earthquake, just insane coverage. And it's just super nice. It has mixed attack potential. It has like 123 attack, which is insane. I've never even thought about Electivire being like such a hard-hitting attacker. And it also has like pretty solid special attack too. I think it's like 95. So, and with coverage like Flamethrower and Psychic and the ability to use Volt Switch, like that's not bad either. So I thought Electivire was cool. I actually thought in this, obviously Electivire is not a better Pokemon than Magnezone because they can like trap and stuff. But in this situation where I wasn't really super scared of like steel types on my team, I thought Electivire was fine. So the final mon is Porygon Z. And you might be asking, why did you pick Porygon Z? Because it doesn't really synergize with anything, because it's a Porygon Z, you know? It's weak to fighting, it's immune to ghosts, and other than that, doesn't do much. Well, the reason I picked Porygon Z was just because it was really good under Sticky Web. So, you know, having synergy with all 11 Mons isn't everything. It's also a question of, like, you know, can I... If I'm facing a team that I think Porygon just sweeps through, I'll bring Porygon. Like, it doesn't need to have perfect synergy with the rest of my team if Porygon is a mon that, if people don't prefer it correctly, can just sweep through a team on its own. It doesn't need the support of the rest of my team. Even though, obviously, it's benefited incredibly by Sticky Webs, but also, like, just Scarf Tri-Attack's amazing. Like, normal resists, what are they? And even if you do have, like, even if my opponent does have, like, rock types and steel types, like, usually those mons don't get recovery, so I chip those down, and then Scarf Tri-Attack or Porygon Z under webs or something just blows through them. So I thought Porygon Z was super cool. It's my dedicated special attacker. I didn't have anything that was a standalone special attacker. Has setup options and agility and nasty plot, and it really only needs like 2 moves most of the time, like Tri-Attack and then like something for a steel type or a ghost type or whatever. Sometimes it needs 3. But I also just think it looks super cool. I love its design. I just love it more than I probably like it a lot more than Porygon 2, honestly. Porygon Z just is wacky and awesome. So that's this is the original plan. Like I said, I only got 5 of those mons, which was those 5 right there. What I'm happy about is, you know, Garchomp, Greninja, Hitmonlee, Moltres. Those were all mons that I really, really wanted. The other mons on the draft, like Scizor and Tapu Koko and stuff like that, I was not as heartbroken as I would have been if I had gotten Garchomp or Greninja sniped. Decidueye is also super cool. It wasn't... I just threw it on my original plan, and then I got rid of it in my later plans, and it came back on my original plan, so it's cool. It stuck around, which is super, super nice. And this is the team. This is the team that is on the Moss Deep Metagross. I think it's super good. I think it's better than the original plan. I think I adapted pretty solidly, and I'm super proud of it. I think it's a great team. So we're just gonna go into a few details about the team specifically. First is Z crystals. We had 20 Z points, and just like the amount of points each Pokemon was worth for Z crystals was the same value as assigned for the draft. So Greninja was 12 points, so it filled 12 of my 20 Z crystal points. And then I had a tough time choosing between Electivire and Moltres, but I just thought that like Z Hurricane and Z Solar Beam is super nice on Moltres, gives it a little bit extra coverage that Electivire already has for it. And I also think, like, if I'm bringing a bulkier Moltres, it's nice to switch into knockoffs and still have, like, an item that does something really nice. So, that's for Moltres. And then another personal goal... I'm going to go into the personal goals now, just, like, see if I met them, reflect on them a little bit, because I like to do that. I like to do some reflecting. First was that I wanted to use a few unfamiliar Gen 7 Pokemon. I got Araquanid, which I never thought I would have drafted at the start of this draft, like I said, and I got Decidueye like I had originally planned. So a good mix of what I expected and didn't expect, and I'm super excited to use both these mons. I'm super unfamiliar with both of them, but I picked them really high for a reason. I think they're going to have really, really, really nice value throughout this draft, so I'm really, really excited to use them. And the next personal goal was to have a large majority of all 17 types present on the draft. I thought I was only going to get like 14 or 15. I ended up getting 16. The only amount I'm missing is Poison, which is kind of annoying because, like, you know, toxic spikes can exist, but it's not a big deal in my mind because I do have like a Garchomp and I also have like a Moltres, and just like Moltres to beat the like grass poisons that Garchomp doesn't beat. But other than that, just like it's fine. I'm totally fine with not having a poison type on my team. If anything, it just added an extra ground weakness, which I wasn't about. So I'm good with that. I'm happy. The last thing was versatile speed tiers, and while I do think that I do have versatile speed tiers, I do personally think that my speed tiers are not up to par with a lot of other teams in the rest of the league. My fastest mon is Greninja at 122, and then there's Garchomp, and then there's Mega Diancie at 110. The problem with having Mega Diancie at 110 is that it also can't run like a Scarf, so if something's like base 115, I really, really, really need to outspeed it, but I can't. I'm relying on Greninja a little bit too much. Um, so it's interesting. I don't know. But we have a 110 Mega Diancie and then 122 Greninja with priority as well. But that's also great. Priority makes up for a lot of the speed tier losses. The ability to trick room on certain mons makes up for that a little bit. But most notably, the sticky webs also complicate speed tiers. When people are building for me, they have to sort of prep with the idea of sticky webs in mind and the idea of sticky webs not being in mind. So that does sort of complicate the speed tiers and make it a little better. And it makes a lot of my base 95, 90, 90, 87 mons a lot more potent, which is super cool. So, go Arachnid. Anyway, the last goal was to draft a good team. That I think I did that. I'm really satisfied with what I got. I think a lot of people see my team and don't see like crazy threats like Magearna and Tapu Lele and Kyurem Black and those sort of notable draft league teams, just like the things that go right away. I originally wanted one of those mons, but I didn't really, I was not interested in a lot of the mons that were still left to me by round one. I just wasn't feeling it. And there's a few teams that did go the route and got like crazy things like Magearna and Kyurem Black and Tapu Lele for absurd value, but I don't know. I feel like I'm more sad. I think I got a good team because I feel like every single one of the 11 has value. There's a lot of teams in this league, in my opinion, that blew all their points on like 5 or 6 their top picks, and then like got like really mediocre, less than like PU mons in like the 1 point or the like. I just think in those situations it feels like it'll be 11 against 10, even though they'll have like a Tapu Lele or a Kyurem Black or a Magearna or something insane. I still think that it's still 11 against 10, so I still have that edge in that sense. I don't know. I just personally wanted all 11 mons to be good, even if it's at the expense of not having a super amazing 20, 30 point mon. So that's it. That's the draft analysis. Hope you enjoyed. I'm super excited. The week 1 battle is going to go up in maybe a few days. I don't know. I'll have to see. But that was it. That was draft analysis. I'll see y'all later.